Welcome to School Matters. I'm Joni Kopis, and our guests today will be talking about the various programs that the district has to reduce the non-academic barriers to education. So our first two guests, Matt and Kristen, if you'd introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
My name's Matt Tudor. This is my fourth year in the school district, and I'm the Director of Student Services.
Very good. Kristen?
My name is Kristen Kwiat, and this is my sixth year in Hamilton, and I'm a Student Family Support Specialist.
Okay, very good. Now, Matt, you said this is your fourth year. This is your second year as the Director of Student Services?
That's correct.
So what's that title? What does that mean? What do you do? What are your responsibilities?
We handle all the attendance and registration as well as discipline. We report all of the data to the state, and we do handle other various things such as inter-district and intra-district enrollment, as well as all the homeschool.
Well, you mentioned sending the data to the state. That's key because that drives our funding, our state report card. So it's a lot of attention to detail and data.
Very good, yeah.
Good for you. Another part of your job, as you mentioned, is working with students and discipline. And you saw a couple years ago when you first started this, sort of a need for some of the students to help working with different social agencies. So explain a little bit about that and what you've done.
Well, we thought that in this city that there were a lot more supports available for our students than maybe we had in place. So we were lucky to add the position that Kristen's in with the Student and Family Support Specialist, which each of our elementary schools have. And then we've tried to do training throughout the district so that when there's an issue with a student that we can put a support in place to make sure that we can see a sustainable change in behavior.
And you mentioned the Student and Family Support Specialist. I think we have to commend our Board of Education for their willingness really to invest in these types of positions.
Yeah, the first semester of this school year, our Student and Family Support Specialist district-wide saw over 1,900 students. They visited over 1,300 classrooms. They ran more than 60 skill groups and had about 550 referrals to social service agencies.
Talk to us a little bit about some of the skill groups that you mentioned.
Well, students that come to school, they don't know everything there is to know about a school. For example, they don't know how to ride a bus. It's not something they have experience, and some students struggle with that. Mm-hmm. Struggles on the bus can lead to loss of academic time if they don't behave. So our Student and Family Support Specialist will run groups on appropriate school bus behavior, along with other things like dealing with students, anger, how to act in the cafeteria, peer relations, dealing with authority. So it's really a targeted where we've got a system where we can pull data from a variety of places and they can identify students based on that data and really provide them with skills that they need to be successful.
And Kristen, I guess you work one-on-one with students and maybe in some small groups as well?
Yes, it kind of varies from day to day and even sometimes minute to minute. But we'll definitely address whatever needs the student have, as well as the family.
Mm-hmm. That's another key component, is working not only with the student, but the family as well.
Yes.
And then what kind of social agencies, Matt alluded to that there's a lot, with Hamilton being the county seat, there's a lot of social agencies here that I assume we draw from.
Definitely. We're very fortunate to be able to partner with different places like the Caring Closet to help provide clothing to students in need, or St. Al's or Butler Behavioral for some different counseling services, and also Butler County Success, which is kind of a liaison to help families with some basic needs.
Do you feel like it's working, Kristen, in your building?
Definitely. I think we not only see it, but hear it from students and teachers, as well as administration and even parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we were lucky this year. We were able to send all of our Student and Family Support Specialists to a training through the Butler County Educational Service Center, where they actually did a bus tour and they were able to visit a lot of the social service agencies within the city and county, so that they have a direct contact.
Because there is a lot out there. You just have to know where they are and what they do. So that's a great idea. So that makes sense. Kristen, you talk about, I know you're with Highland, and you're coordinating a program that's starting next year called HYPE. Explain a little bit about that and what that stands for.
Yes, this year at Highland we piloted the program of HYPE, which stands for Hamilton Youth Pursuing Excellence. And we have 5th and 6th grade boys who are mentored by high school football athletes, who many are a part of the lab program, which is the Leaders at Blue, where they are also mentored by an adult in the community. And they come over once a week. They work on leadership building skills, as well as there's a community service component. And we really hope by having those older students in their lives, as well as giving their time in service, that they'll not only learn their own potential, but see the benefits of good character and start to become leaders at school and in the community.
So the high school students are like the role models, if you will.
Definitely.
And then ideally the 5th and 6th grade boys will be the role models for the younger students.
Yes.
Well, sounds good. And so that starts, I know you said you're piloting that at Highland, and the next year we're going to make it district-wide.
Yes.
Very good. And then, Matt, tell us a little bit about, I know you mentioned the number of referrals that the student and family support specialists have seen the first semester, but do they do also home visits?
I think occasionally they do, and Kristen could talk maybe more specifically about that. The one good thing about this position is they're flexible to when they see a need, they want to react appropriately. So if that means visiting a house, then I think that's something that they would do to make sure students are successful.
Very good.
We definitely have a goal of removing any barriers that would kind of get in the way of a student's education. So whether it be a parent that can't come because of transportation, we try to meet them that way. We definitely work very closely with Butler County Success, who help make a lot of those home visits too.
One other program we have is the Parent Project. So explain a little bit about that, Matt.
Well, we were excited to get on the Parent Project. The U.S. Department of Justice and the U.S. Department of Education, they wrote a letter stating that students who are expelled from schools or involved in the Juvenile Justice Center too often rely on social service agencies as adults, as well as end up in the legal system. So we came up with a proactive program to help reduce the likelihood that they are going to be in that situation. We've partnered with Butler County Juvenile Courts, the Butler County Educational Service Center, Talawanda Schools, and Miami University for the evaluation purposes. And we've trained 4 facilitators on an evidence-based program called the Parent Project, where they teach skills to parents to help with disruptive and destructive students. Additionally, they create a support group for these parents so that they realize that they're not alone in this. Parents who have been through this program for us have described it as transformative, so we're really proud of that.
Is it a 6-week session?
It's a 10-week
10
course.
weeks?
Yeah, the first 6 weeks are 3 hours, and then the final 4 weeks are 4 hours. This is something where we've served over 70 parents so far this school year. And in addition to the Parent Project, we've also partnered with City Conquest, who Curtis Moak, as you know, sits on the City Character Committee. And they run character education for our students while the parents are receiving these
So
skills.
the students are there working with Curtis and his team as the parents are in their session, their classroom, if you will.
That's correct.
Very good. And again, we had 4 people that were trained for that.
Yes.
And that's either through the courts or through your, through you. You suggest that as well?
Hamilton City Schools has 4. I think in the county we have 8 that are trained. So the court does order parents there. We've talked to parents and reached out both proactively and unfortunately reactively as well to talk to them about a solution to students who have disruptive behavior.
And one point you mentioned, it truly is a support group for other parents. I think I'm not alone in my struggles. There's other out there, and they can talk to each other.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. One of the parents who went through one of the first sessions really saw a transformation within her family. So she actually comes and speaks at the very beginning of every class. So lets the parents know that it really wasn't her idea to attend. It's not something that she necessarily had to do, because a lot of times parents are there because of the behavior of their children, not because they're bad parents.
Right.
And she was able to relate to them to say that even though she didn't necessarily want it, it's really transformed her family. So
And that's a great credit to the program then.
Definitely.
A success story, if you will, and then she can share it on with others.
Definitely.
Perfect. Well, great. I appreciate you coming in, Kristen.
Thank you.
And next, stay tuned. We'll be talking to Mike Wright, Assistant Principal at Garfield Middle School, about restorative practices. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us, Mike. This is Mike Wright from Garfield Middle School. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Joni, I've been in the district. This is my 2nd year now, assistant principal at Garfield Middle School. I actually grew up in Butler County. I was a graduate of Edgewood High School and went on to Miami University, where I did both my undergraduate and graduate degree. And was a math teacher in my previous life before becoming an assistant principal.
Oh, well, great. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
We are here to talk to you about the restorative practices. Again, it's another program that we offered. And explain a little bit how that started, Matt.
Restorative practices came about because we started a discipline committee last school year where we examined really what's going on in each school, in each classroom. And from that, we brainstormed multiple programs that we wanted to look at to see which would be a best fit for Hamilton. We brought them in and did video conferences with them and really got a feel for what they were offering, and we decided on restorative practices for implementation in the pilot stages in 3 schools. So we've identified Crawford Woods Elementary, Garfield Middle School, and the Hamilton Freshman School to pilot this program.
So last summer, all the staff of those 3 buildings, even the custodians, secretaries, cafeteria workers, all the staff from the 3 buildings had a 2 or 3 day training?
Correct. It was a 2-day, all-day training. The first day was about mindset, really about what restorative practices are, and the second day was called Using Circles Effectively, and it was really a practical training.
And it's probably helped, Mike, I guess, to have the entire staff on board, so you're all sort of saying the same language.
Yeah, I think that's it's an extremely important process to have everyone on board, because it's really taking the whole idea of how you look at student discipline and actually just the way you run things day to day in your school, and changing kind of the mindset and the way that you use effective language with students, the way that you talk with students. And it's really taking that idea of making students kind of take some ownership for their actions as well, and leading them through that process. So it could be, it could be a custodian, it could be a cafeteria worker, it could be an educational assistant. It doesn't have to be an assistant principal or even a teacher that could be involved with those students.
So the students have their own personal responsibility on their actions.
And when students misbehave, we want them to think about who their behaviors really affect, because a lot of times they don't think about how powerful some of the poor decisions that they make are. And then we also ask them to reflect on how they can make it right. But a lot of the restorative mindset, as Mike will tell you, isn't just about that support piece. We also are punitive, and that's really what restorative means, is high support, high punitive.
And you mentioned about the students having the ownership. Are there not peer circles that I would say, Mike, when you said that affected me this way, so they get a better understanding of how their actions, affect people?
Yeah, a lot of our restorative circles, and we actually use some curriculum circles as well, to get students comfortable with, circling up with their peers and being able to share some of their feelings. A lot of times when we have a student-on-student action that needs to be addressed, we sit them down and we ask questions like, what happened? Who did this affect? What have you thought about since this happened? So there's some scripted questions that we use to get them to think and process through basically what occurred from the time the incident started until now that they're sitting in a circle with this person who they may have have offended.
Yeah, and you're face to face.
Correct. Yeah, it's it gives them an opportunity.
That's powerful.
Oh yeah, it definitely gives them an opportunity to have a say, and also what we've really been excited about is to see that the students. They can come to their own conclusion that maybe something they did might have affected someone that they didn't think about initially when they committed that action.
And Matt, we talked about the 3 schools and the entire staff taking the training, but also all of our other building administrators were part of that training as well, right?
That's correct. We trained all of the building administrators as well as all the student and family support specialists. I know Kristen was just with us. That position went through the training as well.
And so they're using some of that as well, but our hope is to expand it for next school year.
That's correct. Next year we hope to expand it to more buildings. I think all of the buildings have a piece of it, but it really will help formalize that effort.
Do you have any stats or data right now?
We do. One of the most powerful statistics we have is on suspension. Our pilot schools have seen a drop in suspension by 83% for the first semester of this school year compared to the first semester of last school year. In addition, they've seen a 111% decrease in recommendations for expulsion. And one of the most interesting statistics I've seen is when we looked at staff attendance. One of the intended outcomes from restorative practices is they said that there would be an increase in staff attendance. Our pilot schools have seen 37% less absences by staff members.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is, and especially when you compare the non-pilot schools who have seen almost a 20% increase in staff absences. So we're really pleased with the outcomes at this point, and we feel like it's really going to save the district money in the long run, and we're going to be able to treat students appropriately.
And I would say one of the things that we see is that, because all the staff was trained at the beginning of the summer, they took 2 days out of their summer to come in and be trained on this restorative practices. It does give them some ownership into what's occurring within the school.
And so you've seen it firsthand.
Yes, definitely.
Success stories and what have you. Then.
Oh yeah, and I see with our students just that they're sometimes even just stopping to think before they say something or before they do something, because of the opportunities that they've had with not only their teachers, administrators, but they're seeing this on a daily or weekly basis in a lot of cases, because it's just become part of our program and part of what we do at Garfield Middle School.
The common language.
Yes.
And one thing I think Garfield's done an excellent job of leading the way in this pilot is the reentry process. In the past, when students did something that we had to exclude them from school, we'd hand them a suspension letter and send them out the door. In a lot of ways, that's letting them off a little bit easy. I want Mike to talk a little bit about the reentry process,
Right.
that now they've got to face those that they harmed.
Right.
So when they come back into school, what do you do then?
Yeah, the restorative practice is it doesn't still take place of suspensions if a student does offend and have a suspendable offense. But what we've done is once they come back into school, we actually place them in our in-school suspension for a day. And sometime during that day, we'll bring them in with one of our counselors. And if it's a teacher that they offended, or if it's another student that they offended, we'll give them the opportunity to sit down and circle up with those individuals and to kind of process through about what happened, what occurred, and what needs to happen from this point forward, so that that we don't have a reoccurrence of this event. That's the one thing that I've noticed, is that a lot of times last year, a student would get suspended and then they would come back, they would be in school, and they would get suspended again relatively quickly. We don't see that happening this year. We don't see a lot of reoffending from our students who are suspended, and I think it's definitely attributed to the reentry circles that we've been running.
Yeah, very powerful.
And statistically, only about half as many students have been suspended more than one time this year when compared to last year.
So it seems like it's working.
Yes.
Yeah, be interesting to see how the statistics, work throughout the course of the years. But right now, it looks pretty promising.
Yeah, and the other thing that Mike didn't touch on is they also talk about academic success. When you miss school, you miss instruction.
Right.
So part of that reentry process does also look at what can we do to help you academically to make sure you don't fall any further behind.
Right. We do it kind of in two pieces. We do the behavior consequence, or the behavior circle, and then we also do the academic. And that's part of the reason we bring our school counselor in, because they set up a plan with those students as to how they're going to make up for that work that they have missed while they were out on suspension.
So they can play catch up, so they can get
Correct.
all in.
Correct.
And then Matt, you talked about expanding this pilot to other schools. Again, that would be more training then for each individual building that wants to come on board this summer then.
That's correct. We would look to train all additional district staff, which would also include our bus drivers, like we did in the past, secretaries, custodians, educational aides, teachers. Our administrators are trained, but any new administrators or teachers that might come on from our pilot schools, we'd also look to train them this summer.
Well, and you had mentioned earlier too about some of the skill groups that the student and family support specialists have created, and one of course is how to ride a bus. So if the bus drivers are in this restorative practice, again, that can reinforce the again, everyone's saying the same language.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, it sounds like, a couple of the programs that we have, seems like with the statistics, it seems to be working. So we're anxious to make sure that it continues, and I'm confident that it will.
Me too.
So thank you guys for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
And for TV Hamilton, I'm Joni Kopis, and we'll see you next time.